Summer has finally arrived in the northeast of Scotland. The fields of Aberdeenshire are lush and green now, the barley waving in the wind, and the hedgerows full of flowering dogrose and honeysuckle. The days stretch endlessly. Sunrise is around 4 and sunset just after 10, but it never truly gets dark, just a long, soft twilight that rests over us until morning comes again. The sound of summer is everywhere. Wood pigeons cooing from the trees, skylarks twittering high above the fields, and the constant hum of bees moving through the clover and buttercups. The trees are in full leaf now, heavy and green. You can occasionally smell the distant salt of the North Sea if the breeze shifts just right and the sea har drifts in. The waterways run cool and clear, and sometimes you catch a flash of silver from a salmon, or the sudden splash of a heron taking flight. The red squirrels have been busy too. I've spotted a few this week near the edge of the woods, their movements quick and sharp in the dappled light. It feels like everything is alive now, the whole landscape shifting into fullness. The fields, the forests, the coast, it all feels wide open and generous. Oh, there's a leaf in it. Oh. And now we're in Cancer season. The sun entered Cancer at the summer solstice, the point of maximum light in the Northern Hemisphere. Although, paradoxically, this is also the moment when the light begins to recede, the turning point. Cancer is the first water sign of the zodiac. It's cardinal, which means it initiates, it begins a season, it moves things forward. It also marks the start of the waning half of the solar year. The days are still long, but they are shortening now. And that tells us something about the sign, the deeper meaning of this sign. In the Thema Mundi, the mythical birth chart of the universe, Cancer is a sign placed on the ascendant, essentially the rising sign of the cosmos. And in fact, for a long time, Cancer was thought of as the start of the astrological year, not Aries. It was seen by ancient astrologers as the gateway through which all souls descend into incarnation. The light darkening from the summer solstice was associated with the descent of spirit into matter. So, Cancer is a sign we associate with birth, with the threshold between spirit and matter. It contains the archetype of the mother, the womb, the material world. It's the place where life begins to take shape, slowly, quietly, protected from the outside world. Cancer is a water sign. We associate it with memory, intuition, and emotion. It's our stories, our attachments, our longing for safety. It's the sign that rules roots, lineage, home, and ancestry, and invites a return to origin in order to understand who we are through where we've come from. Cancer is where the moon is domiciled and is also where Jupiter is exalted. Both these planets associated with the proliferation of life and fertility. And at this time of year, the energy of Cancer is everywhere. The wildlife is nurturing its young. The first fruit pollinated during Gemini season is starting to ripen. The summer wildflowers are in full bloom. The landscape is lush and it's full. And this year, Cancer season is especially fertile because Jupiter has come to call. Jupiter's exaltation in Cancer means he's treated like an honoured guest, raised up and basically handed a VIP pass. Here, the greater benefic really gets to support, affirm, and bring things to fruition. That said, Saturn, the greater malefic, is applying pressure on Jupiter by making an overcoming square from the sign of his fall in Aries. This kind of puts the brakes on what Jupiter is able to achieve. I mean, you just take one look at the news and you'll see how this is appearing in the collective. Thankfully, their square has perfected, so basically it's now waning, and one would hope that Saturn's influence will now be less keenly felt. They'll still be square by whole sign though, and this generates the kind of friction that forces change. Jupiter has blessings to provide, but Saturn is going to make you work for them. I'm dropping this video just after a beautiful Jupiter cazimi on 24th June, which was followed by the new moon in Cancer just a day later. So around the 24th, 25th, you may have noticed a burst of optimism, maybe some clarity and a potent reset in the Cancer sector of your chart. This lunar cycle is really great for starting something new. Mercury enters Leo on the 26th of June, and here the messenger planet expects an audience. Think hot takes, dramatic status updates, and passionate confessions. It's where the heart meets the head. And the beginning of this transit is particularly powerful because Mercury will be in opposition to Pluto in Aquarius. This is also where Mercury will turn retrograde on the 18th of July. More details to come, but an early heads up. If you are planning a trip over the summer, you might want to factor that into your travel plans. Then we're into July. So on the 4th, Venus conjoins Uranus at the very last degree of Taurus. So this could be unexpected revelations, breakups, or breakthroughs in how we approach love, art, fashion, and/or connection. And then just hours later, Venus skips into Gemini. She moves from her sensual, earthy domicile of Taurus into a far more flirty, curious, and social version of herself. Around the same time, Neptune stations retrograde in Aries. And on the 7th of July, an enormous era-defining shift as Uranus leaves Taurus for Gemini. This marks the beginning of a 7-year journey that will radically shift how we think, how we communicate, and how we connect. You can expect tech and travel to evolve at lightning speed, new forms of media to emerge, and shifts in communication and connection. This is like the innovation station transit. Now, it's just a preview. Uranus will retrograde back into Taurus in November and then return to Gemini for good next spring. But I noticed something super curious. Exactly the same Venus-Uranus conjunction that forms on the 4th of July will take place next year, just before Uranus moves into Gemini again. Same sequence, same degrees. So pay close attention to what happens in the first week of July this year, because it may well echo what plays out on or around 23rd April 2026. Anyway, back to this July and our next lunation, which is the full moon in Capricorn on the 10th of July. This arrives just a few days before Saturn, its ruler, stations retrograde, bringing us a giant Saturn-shaped exclamation point. This is definitely going to heighten the expression of Saturn's energy in Aries, the sign of its fall. Saturn is the planet associated with discipline, structure, patience, responsibility, and long-term planning, and it really struggles in Aries, which is known for its impulsive and bold energy. Aries is all about immediate action, spontaneity, and self-assertion. It's the act first, think later sign. Saturn, on the other hand, wants careful consideration and measured action. This lunation will likely be thinking about the tension that these two opposing approaches create. how we use our energy, how we assert ourselves, and whether the goals we've been chasing are authentic. This is also the first time that Saturn will station retrograde in the sign of Aries, which adds another layer of significance to the lunation. Then, as mentioned earlier, Mercury stations retrograde on the 18th of July. Obviously, the usual Mercury retrograde warnings apply. If you're traveling, double check the itinerary, and if you can, build in extra time to account for possible delays in your journey. You'll probably also want to check over any writing for errors and make sure you're definitely sending that email to the right person. More positively though, Mercury retrograde in Leo encourages self-reflection, especially regarding identity, creativity, and self-expression. And then the last transit I want to mention is a highly dynamic T-square across the mutable signs, forming between Venus, Mars, and the nodal axis around the 22nd of July. This might bring a sense of urgency in relationships or creative projects, but with both planets squaring the nodal axis, there's also something fated in the air, which may stir situations that test your growth, especially around how you relate, express desire, or respond to conflict. So things may feel tense, but there's also potential for clarity, course correction, or an honest breakthrough. And that's us really. I'd probably say try and make the most of the early part of Cancer season as things become increasingly tricky as we get into July. One last thing I want to mention is the decans that will be activated across Cancer season. So Cancer 1, two, and 3. If you haven't come across them, decans are 10-degree slices of the zodiac which split each sign into 3 parts. One of the best ways to connect with the current energy is follow the sun as it travels through each decan on what's known as a decan walk. So as I'm recording this, the sun is at 1 degree of Cancer, which falls in the first decan of Cancer. Then when it reaches 10 degrees, it will hop over into the second decan of Cancer. And then finally, the third when it reaches 20 degrees of Cancer. And this is really fun to follow. To make it easier, I've created a decan tracker over on the Wildway website. So you can easily follow which decan the sun is currently in. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. This channel is something that I've been thinking about putting together for a long time. Just bringing the current astrology down to earth and reflecting on how it shows up in nature. In fact, really, that's what the whole Wildway project is about at its heart. I'd say an awful lot of people who follow or even practice astrology don't necessarily make the connection to the natural world, but that is quite literally where the symbolic language of astrology originates from. In my mind, it's fundamental to understand how the solar cycle shows up throughout each zodiac sign throughout the year. And honestly, with all of that going on in the world at the moment, I think it's more important than ever that we take the time to reconnect with the natural world.